Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. This is Talib Karim, the CEO of Abe, and we are excited about tonight. This is a homecoming, and I absolutely had no plans at all to be doing a live broadcast on Howard University Homecoming Day. However, as is generally the case with Howard University and Howard University students, we are doing something different. Not only is it the fact that we are going through a global pandemic, but our students at Howard University during COVID are actually protesting. They're protesting because there has been a lack of attention paid to the housing needs of the student community at Howard University. And this is not new, but this has been going on for a very long time. And we actually have one of the alumni leaders, former student leaders, who has been paying attention to this issue. And she's joining with us tonight. We're going to have a conversation with her. We want you to, again, like this program if you like it, share it with your friends, and most importantly, send the word out to alumni, to faculty, to parents that tomorrow at noon, we're hosting a press conference and rally on the yard, the campus, the main campus of Howard University on 2600 6th Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. We're asking you all to come on out and to stand in solidarity with our student leaders and listen to alumni leaders like the person I'm going to be bringing on right now. And that is none other than Dr. Maria Jones. I call her doctor. She, of course, has the gray hair to, symbolize. And actually, she seems like she has one of those little, graduation robes on right now. But Maria Jones, a former Howard University student leader, a filmmaker and social justice advocate, and also I can share with you has been involved with bringing about change in education, even as a parent. And that's how we reconnected after a very long time of being students and not being in contact with each other. But she contacted our law firm, and we had the great honor of working with the legendary Howard University alumni, who is, again, well known that people know the attorney who worked with Maria to get the justice with, what's the name of the middle school, by the way, that your children were going to?
It was John Burroughs Elementary School at the time.
Absolutely. And Johnny Mercer, the legendary Johnny Mercer, was the lead attorney who helped to bring about a change in the decision to close down Burroughs Middle School. And that school is still open now as a result of Maria Jones's good work, along with attorney John Mercer and the other parents. And so again, we congratulate you. And some years later, we reconnected to talk about what was going on at Howard University. Let's start there, Maria, and then bring it fast forward. As you may remember, the students were protesting in 2018 because they were, again, upset about housing, about the mismanagement of the funding. There was a scandal in which a student had been paid off, I guess, allegedly for sexual favors, and supposedly $100,000 or more. And the students were outraged, and they were calling for a change in leadership. They were calling for the president to step aside, along with the board of trustees, and something that they had not paid attention to, but you had paid attention to, and that was the issue of the property at Howard University. Why don't we pick it up there? And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. We're going to be, again, talking about tomorrow's protest and press conference at Howard University. We're calling on alumni, parents, and faculty to stand with the students. But Maria, talk about what you see is the underlying issue, and that goes to the assets of Howard University. And give us a little bit more a background about yourself. I know you lead an alumni movement Feel free to share whatever you feel like sharing right now.
Sure, Talib. And you actually were the one that kind of got me involved and started the first kind of iteration of what is now the Capstone Group. And that was inspired, as you know, from the 2018 student protest movement at the time, when we found out what was going on with President Frederick and the siphoning of funds from the students, really. We were outraged. And then to take it deeper, we found out, as you intimated, that the properties were being sold off, their assets, Meridian Hall, which I don't know, I think that housed like 600 kids, maybe more, Carver Hall, Slow Hall, and then now recently the School of Divinity. And so we were just outraged that the university would contribute to gentrification in this way. Because as you know, so now those properties have been leased for a couple of years now, and the students cannot afford to live in those properties. But instead, you have too often white, upper middle class folks living in and around Howard University instead of the predominantly African American population of the students or even the faculty. So Howard is a great purveyor of gentrification at this point. Okay, so that was 4 years ago. And now here we are again, 2021. Gentrification has become more aggressive and more violent in the displacement of Black people all around Washington, D.C. You know that Washington, D.C. it had one of the most just aggressive and deliberate gentrification rates in anywhere of the nation. So now Howard students, you fast forward, like we said, it's 2021. Howard students they don't have anywhere to live because of this nature of gentrification. There is no place to live. Unlike us 20, 30 years ago, we had the little old ladies who had a house around LaDroit Park, and you can live in one of the rooms rented out for $200. Those options are absolutely not there. Not there. They cannot afford to live anywhere around Howard. The apartments start at $2,000, and that's for a one bedroom. So Howard is guilty of pricing out their students out of this university. And the students have pleaded with the university for not only not being able to find housing and being charged full price for housing, but not being able to find it, and finding themselves in deplorable conditions with roaches, rats, and mildew and mold. So not only have I heard this, I've talked with students directly. We have been in touch. We've heard first accounts. We've seen the mold and the mildew, and we have students in the hospital now because of respiratory illnesses that have been caused by the neglect of these dorms. The dorms, they must have, because I talked to a student and I said, well, when we went up there about a week ago, and I said, well, what dorm is this that has these conditions? And she said, it's all of the dorms. And at that point, then it clicked. It was like, oh, COVID. The dorms were closed down for a year and nobody serviced those dorms during COVID. So you had these, if they're not serviced, you have the mold, the mildew, and everything. They turn on the air and they open the windows and they turn on showers, and you have just a hotbed of serious conditions. So you have the students going to the administration about that, going to the administration about the lack of housing, going to the administration about their tuition being raised, but services not being there. And then, Talib, to top it off, you have the situation where over the summer, the Howard University Board of Trustees made a decision to eliminate faculty, student, and alumni seats from the board. So you're eliminating democracy or any semblance thereof. When you do that, what do you have? You have people who have a corporate kind of mind state and they're forging ahead without any input from the key stakeholders. That's very, very dangerous. So students were like, so why would you do this? What is the purpose for this? And students, faculty, and alum received some canned answers that didn't make any sense. There was tension in the room between the affiliate trustees and the main trustees. And so, in order to alleviate tension, we eliminated the seat. Now, what kind of sense does that make? I learned at Howard that tension from my professor, Haile Garima, that tension, you need tension. Tension is what creates growth. You have to have some tension in an organization in order to grow. So we all knew that that was just a load of crap. And really, if you look at the direction that Howard is going in, you look at the gentrification, where are they going? What do they want to do? Why don't they want oversight? Why don't they want folks pitching in? In the midst of close to $1 billion in endowments since George Floyd's death, the white guilt money has been pouring in. So,
and it's funny.
Board of Trustees want.
And it's interesting. You also mentioned the money, as you once said, you have to always follow the money, right? And if you look at the money, as you may know, some schools, they actually went ahead, like Virginia State University, and basically forgave all of the tuition that was owed by students who had a debt because of the monies that had come in through the pandemic, surplus, or not the surplus, but the pandemic relief funds, right? That's what the Republicans and Democrats were fighting over. And as a part of that money, some of that money went to universities, and some of the universities, like Virginia State, actually led by a Howard alumnus, Dr. Makola Abdullah, who some say was the first PhD in engineering, first African American to receive a PhD in engineering, or the youngest African American to receive a PhD in engineering is, I think, the data point. But nevertheless, he was wise enough to forgive all of the student debt for students who had a debt. But what did Howard do? Did they, follow that same lead? No. And the reason why some speculate is because of the bloated amount of the pay to the president and the other senior leaders at Howard University. Can you speak to that? Do you know how much the current president is receiving currently?
I don't know specifically. I've heard close to 2 million. I've heard maybe 1.5 million. I'm not really sure, but I know it's too daggone much.
In fact, one data point I heard was that he was the highest paid president of any historically Black college or university in the country. And and at the same time, some would say that there are other HBCUs that are basically ahead of Howard in terms of certain data points, like the number of graduates or the number of engineering program students or other types of data points. That being said, if a university is bringing in a lot of money, then perhaps there's a reason to pay the president so much money. But I've been told that, again, in context of this president, that he has long received money before this, as you put it, guilt money was coming in. And so the reason why they had to sell off the properties, or at least lease them out, is so they could show a cash positive uh, to the board to justify the high salaries that were being paid to the president and his cabinet. Can you speak to that?
Well, I mean, you have a man doing two duties basically, or two jobs, two full, separate, completely jobs, and he is talented. He is a talented surgeon. I think the head of surgery at the Howard University Hospital slash Adventist Hospital at this point. And your president. I just don't see how you shouldn't be doing both. You really, really shouldn't. For the interest of both of the demographics that you serve, really, you just need to stick with surgery at this point. You know, that's what I'll say on that. To your point about the other universities sharing the wealth that they have received by canceling student debt, I think that's very noble. And I think that Howard definitely needs to do the same, because I think that they've received the most endowments of any Black HBC or of any HBCU. And so it would only be right. He could totally rectify this situation right now if he legitimately cancels student debt. I talked to one student, and she's a student on the front line. And she is not only working a full-time job, she's a senior. She is going to school full-time, and she's on the front line full-time. And at the end of this month, she owes something like $8,000. And if she doesn't pay it, she won't be able to continue on. And she's a senior. So she's just one representation of so many students that have given their bottom dollar. They have drained their families' financial resources to be at this great institution because of the legacy of Howard University. But then you have President Frederick making far too much money. You said perhaps he deserves it. No, he doesn't. We can't be corporate capitalists with our institutions.
Well, you're right. You're right about that. I didn't say he deserved it.
Okay,
I said that if the university was, again, serving its students well, right, and it was leading in the matrices that would justify it, then I couldn't oppose it. From a dollars and cents analysis. However, that's not the case. And so and now I understand that not only have students called out these concerns, again, going back to 2018, and in fact, even quite frankly, some people might not realize and remember that actually in 2014 or around 2014, or I'm sorry, 2012. In 2012, there was a letter that was issued by then Board of Trustees member, Vice Chairman, her name was Hickenbotham. I think it was Renee Hickenbotham, Attorney Renee Hickenbotham of Houston, I believe. And she said that the way in which Howard University was being managed then, that if it continued, that the university would no longer be in existence by 2016. So some of us gathered together on a Zoom, actually, something a predecessor to Zoom. It was a calling feature that I forget the name of it, but freeconference.com, freeconferencecall.com. And we joined together in that, and we had about 125, 150 alum concerned about what was happening at Howard. And as a result of that momentum, that president, who was formerly the president of Bowling Green University, he stepped aside, and we pushed for an alumni, because he was not an alum. We pushed for an alum to be appointed as a president. And, we were given Dr. Frederick. And we were told that here, Dr. Frederick was a alum. He was a 3-time alum of the undergrad, alum of the medical school, and also alum of the business school. So a three-time
Mm.
alum, and somebody who supposedly, bled Howard. That's what he said, right?
Mhm.
And I must say, and also, you graduated in 91 or 92? Which year?
Actually, 88.
Okay, you graduated 88, so you know, I got more grade than you, but you got me beat for a couple years. But I graduated with him in 92, and he
Oh,
was
wow.
not a known personality at all on campus at that time.
Mm.
He was, I think, the mascot of the soccer team or something like that, or the manager of the soccer
Oh,
team.
okay.
Call him a mascot, but nevertheless, he was not a soccer player, but
Hmm.
he was a supporting role member of the soccer team. With
Okay.
that said, um, but we supported him, because again of all those things, and we thought that he was going to be bringing some change, some positive change, and it looked like he was doing that for the first year, but then swiftly things changed and started going downhill, and we started hearing rumors on campus that he was creating a caste system on campus,
Mm.
a system where they were dividing the faculty based upon whether they were again immigrants or not, and in fact, actually penalizing alumni who are again African American or native born faculty members to the detriment of the campus, and this schism that was created was just the one of many of the indicators that some people said that showed them that there was another plan going on at Howard altogether, a plan perhaps not even to preserve the university, but a plan actually to bring the university to its knees, and perhaps lead to the sell off, and perhaps the closure, or at least the closure of the university as an in-person campus. Have you heard those things, and what have been the concerns that the alumni you represent have talked about?
Well, I have heard some of what you mentioned. I had not heard that there was like a plan underfoot to perhaps bring the university to its knees. But in seeing these things and observing, you'd wonder. You really start to wonder, like, wow, why sell off your properties or lease them out for 99 years when students should be in those? We are creative people. We have so many gifts as Black people, as African Americans. You know that we can find a way to create, to invent something that would bring revenue to us without selling our clothes. You don't have to sell off all of your assets. So that was very strange to me. If you want to sustain the university, then you need housing. You need a pool of housing. You need your buildings to be in order. You need to kind of um, have all of your assets around the campus. You need to expand, like Columbia University and GW and Temple Universities, other universities. They're buying instead of selling off their assets. But then, if you think about the way that this country, where this country is going, where the world is going, really, it's just some hardcore corporate capitalism going on. And so corporate capitalism does not care about education. It makes everything is a commodity and everything can be killed. Okay. So, if you it makes everything from cancer a commodity to AIDS to COVID, you know, 19. So certainly education is no exception. And it's all about producing consumers, 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 and taking the thought out of education. So I think maybe it is part of that master plan. Um, Blackness has always been a threat. Black institutions have always been a threat, to the white power structure. So if you think in that context, maybe
Well,
it is. I don't like to use the term conspiracy, but maybe there is a plan afoot, because certainly it doesn't seem like right now they care about Black children at all.
Well, and the demonstration of that is that they have threatened to expel the students who are protesting to merely make Howard better. I mean, if you think about it, if you were to look at this as a marketing opportunity, the university could really be running with this. I mean, a Howard University alum is the vice president of the United States, you
Yeah.
know, and the concept of activism is a staple of Howard University core curriculum, if you will.
Yes.
Why not actually celebrate? Talk about homecoming. I've never heard of a student protest going on during homecoming. And we know how, almost sacrosanct Howard University homecoming is. Isn't it quite, fascinating that you have a protest going on during this time where most students are just basically, kind of lollygagging and celebrating and going to parties, but these students are actually camped outside. I wish I had some of that.
The
And
footage.
I'm gonna try to see if I can pull up some of that footage that you shared with us. But
Yeah, I
tell
think
us
they
about what
emailed
you
it to you.
saw on the campus, and what that was like, seeing these students who were protesting, and what their conditions were and how they were being treated. Can you talk to that, please?
Well, gone up a couple of times last night, and the first time we went up was Friday. The capstone members. I just want to shout them out for actually being on the ground, present. And well, first of all, let me back up and say thank you to all of the alumni across the nation who have contributed financially, with sleeping bags, tents, and food to the students. That is outstanding. At this point, we need you to be on, in physical presence, but we'll get to that. So going back, the comparison from the first time we went to last night was starkly different, because the first time we went, you had maybe, I don't know, 10 tents. Now you have 30 or 40 tents. And they're not just in front of Blackburn, but they're lined up against the wall of fine arts. They're all the way down by what used to be Lock Hall. I'm not sure if it's even called that now. They're behind, or they're on the side of Blackburn going back into the fine arts parking lot. Um, of course, you have all of the stations, the food stations, and everything is very well organized. But you can see the fatigue. The kids are tired. They don't want to do that. They don't want to do this. This is not like it's fun. Um, but they're doing it because they are so committed. I mean, let's face it, they're being ripped off. I'm gonna just say it. $48,000 a year, half of them being freshmen and sophomores. They have no place to stay. When I say they have no place to stay, they're doubling up. They're with friends, they're with relatives, they're in their cars, they're in storage bins. Okay, that's what I've heard today. They are way out. You have freshmen and sophomores about 30 miles away, at a place called the Maza Apartments, and it's some type of off student campus housing that it just doesn't house Howard kids, but it also houses University of Maryland students and maybe UDC students too. There is no adult supervision on staff on site. The students are fending for themselves. They are completely disconnected from campus activity, campus life, and just safety, really. Um, so the students are really tired. They're tired, but they're committed, and they're going to be out there until the very bitter end, until Frederick and the administration answers the demands, until they respond to the demands. Um, it would be really easy, like you said, Talib, to say for him to go out and humbly present himself to the students and say, this is in the spirit of this university. I'm so proud of you. And you know what? Let's sit down and talk and work this out right this very minute, because I love you. and I respect you. And I have, and we're going to treat you with dignity and the utmost care and love, because that's what we do. We hold you Black students on high, in high regard. But that's not the case. And it's not just Frederick who has demonstrated his disdain for the students. Oh, good, you got some footage. It is also, it's a culture. It's a culture that's been of the administration that has been directed to students and faculty and alum for years. And I call it self-hate. It's vestiges from our enslavement era, the time when were enslaved. It really is. And we have to fight that. It's a sickness. And when you have people in power, unfortunately, it manifests like this a lot of times. So I know I said a lot, folks.
No, you said a lot, sister, but you were right on the money. I mean, and again, I think that it you need only again see some of the footage out here with our students who are at the Blackburn Center, and the Blackburn Center means a lot to me. I don't know if you have the same recollection, but I used to work at the Blackburn Center. And before I worked at the Blackburn Center, I was a transfer student. I transferred to Howard from the United States Air Force Academy, where I started off, and I received some pretty discriminatory treatment. Let's just say that at the Air Force Academy, and that's the reason why I left the academy and came to Howard. And at Howard, because I didn't have any scholarship money like I did when I went to the Air Force Academy, which is completely paid for. One of the things that was missing from my experience was money to pay for food. So oftentimes I used to try to sneak into the cafeteria, because my brother had a food card. He had a one of the cards that could allow you to basically get dinner at least. And I used to try to tag along with him because he was a freshman student and I was a transfer junior. And there was a lady who worked in the cafeteria, used to always see me and made such a big commotion to like call me out and embarrass me as I was trying to get food. It's something I'm not proud about. You know what I mean? But it was a reality. I was food insecure. And at one point, my brother actually was tempted. There was this organization called the Moonies. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they were a religious group, and they used to hold programs at Howard that had food, and specifically to lure hungry students like ourselves to come to those, even though we were Muslim, to come to the places to get the food and to get the indoctrination, And so these are the types of things, that conditions that even back then when we were at Howard, but the fortunate thing, again, this Blackburn Center, which makes it so special, is that not only, again, was it the place that had the student cafeteria, but also it had jobs. And I had the blessing to have now in not my first semester, but starting in my second semester at Howard, I was able to get a job at the Blackburn Center. And that just changed my entire life, because not only was I, able to, now afford some food because I was being employed, but also because I was in the Blackburn Center, I got to get free access to all the food that was hosted there at all the receptions and the like. So the Blackburn Center, which is again the place where these students are speaking from right now, is a sacred place. And so what was the thought? Because most times when students are protesting, they take over the administration building. But this time they took over the Blackburn Center. I had never heard of that. Can you speak to that, Maria?
Well, actually, there was a student, some type of student event going on that HUSA had sponsored. And so many of the students were there. It was a great strategy. They were already there. They were already in place. And so they said, let's do it in Blackburn right now, because I think it was going on in one of the little auditoriums in Blackburn. So that's what they came up with. I think it was ingenious. I don't think the admin was expecting it because normally it's in front of the A building. So hats off to the groups, the student organization. You have the Young Democratic Socialists of America, headed by Erica England, and you have the Live movement, headed by Anaya Vines. And so that's what they did. Now, previous to this mass action, Young Democratic Socialists, they also did a sit-in or an information session down on Georgia Avenue, Georgia and Howard Place, maybe a month before that. And before they had a town hall meeting. So this was a buildup in mass action, and it really just it grew, and the students became more attractive. So directly after that event, that Houston event in Blackburn, then they said, boom, we're going to sit in, and they already had their backpacks and some sleeping stuff and everything like that. So they were in Blackburn. They spent the night, and then the campus police, I believe, began to say, you can't come in and out, you can't come in and out. And so some students were stuck. Like, don't quote me for like the complete accuracy on this. You really need to talk to Erica England, which I tried to get her on the phone. You might want to try her tomorrow. So some of the students were stuck outside, and then other students joined them in solidarity, and it just grew and grew and grew. And so right now you have many students in Blackburn. I don't know how many, maybe 40. I mean, I was in there, myself and a capstone colleague were there last night. And then you have more and more tents every day being pitched right outside of Blackburn. So hats off to them. And this has been the longest running protest at Howard University, and Howard University history. And most of these students are girls, they're females, so they're incredible. And we have to be equally as incredible. The alum, thank you for all of the donations, but it's time to show up and protect these students in person. That's exactly what we need. The Capstone Group and yourself, brother, your organization, what we're doing, we started tonight. The Black Panther Party, the new Black Panther Party has already been, shout out to them, they've been holding it down, security for the students, outside of Blackburn, making sure untowardly people don't come up, but they need help. And so the Capstone has initiated, we're calling on alumni to come out, take a shift, to sit out, bring your tent, your chair, and take a shift and just be there with a protective presence for our students. We have to protect our students. The police came up there tonight or today earlier, and they had a confrontation with the students. And it was like they tried to sneak them and get them out of the building. They'll be back. They're gone now, they'll be back. And the students need to be protected to make sure they do not harm our children. We need men to be out there. We got enough of them. We need y'all down there. We need women to counsel with the young sisters and brothers. They are beautiful. We've been talking with them constantly every day. We talk with a student leader, and we just check in. And when we go there, it's like it's just beautiful. We were out there dancing, doing electric slide and stuff last night, and fellowshipping with them. And my heart is really, they're our children. Like, they are our children, and we have to protect them. If we don't, and if something happens, we will have blood on our hands. Not just the university, but us alums, the faculty. Like, we got to show up. Get down there now. If you would like, I'm just going to say this. If you would like to take a shift, please write to, and I can put it in the chat, mechaminded@gmail.com. My husband is there tonight with some other brothers. They're taking a shift tonight. Your group is having a rally tomorrow, Talib. That's beautiful, and a press conference at 12, and people will be on the ground. And we need to stay on the ground, not just show up for a photo op or, hey, students. No, we need to be there with them. That was a request made by one of the student leaders tonight. She said, we need some more people down here, just in case something jumps off. We got to be on the side of righteousness. Excuse me 1 second.
Well, no, and it's definitely understood. I mean, and I think that it is again it's obvious that the time for talk is over. You know, the time now is for action. And Howard University alumni have long been considered the consciousness of America. Again, we have a member of our alumni community who's currently the Vice President of the United States. Well, I'm going to call out this. I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb here. So I'm going to call out Madam Vice President. I mean, you have more access to the current president of Howard University than I. And so I call out for you. I call out to the members of the DC Council that has, again, oversight over a number of Howard University assets, including the hospital. I call out to the Department of Healthcare Finance, who is, again, responsible and serves in an oversight capacity for the finance of the Howard University Hospital. I call out to the leaders of the Department of Education, who are responsible for overseeing the federal dollars. We have, again, a mismanagement of those federal dollars taking place, where, again, students are paying for housing and they're not able to get housing, or if they get housing, in many cases, the housing is substandard. Again, mold. You're talking about infestation of animals. I mean, these are the types of things that are taking place. So if you are in one of these oversight roles, it is your responsibility. It's not just something that you should do. And I see there's somebody else who's joined us. Is there another member of the Capstone group who'd like to come on as well?
I think so. I'm not sure who, but
they're welcome. They're welcome to join us. I
Thank you.
put them on the screen, whoever they might be. They have to share their camera. But again, if you are in a role of responsibility, it's your duty to again come to the university tomorrow at noon. At 12 noon, we're going to be hosting a rally and press conference in solidarity with the students. And you are welcome to join us because, again, this is what you are paid for. You are paid to make sure that these dollars are being used to serve the public interest. And if, again, students, alumni, and faculty are all saying that these monies are being mismanaged, you can't just turn a blind eye. You may have relationships with members of the Board of Trustees. The president may even be your friend. He may be your Instagram buddy. You might have Facebook Lives together. Well, that's, again, all out the window. Because, again, when your job is to oversee, again, how funding is being spent, if your job is to protect the safety and well-being of the public, and particularly students, then it is your responsibility. I'm calling out the mayor of Washington, D.C. I'm calling out the council of Washington, D.C. I'm calling out the gentleman who wants to run for who's planning to run against the mayor, Robert White. I'm calling you out. I'm calling out, again, Christina Henderson, the newly elected member of the D.C. Council. I'm calling out all of the people who are responsible for making sure that Howard University is, again, operating in the public interest. I'm calling out the Attorney General. All these people are, again, responsible. And I know this because I actually served in government, both in the federal government as well as in the DC government. So I'm familiar with the responsibilities that the people have. And so, Maria, what should people do if they want to help the students in addition to coming out? Let's say, for example, many of our people listening may be out of town. What can they do, Maria?
People listening, maybe who may be out of town, continue to send monies to the Live movement for future mass actions for the things that they need now. Also, send folks down there. They know people that they can pick up a phone. They have folks in Washington, D.C. As we stated before, you're having a press conference and a rally to generate presence, physical presence. We have brothers down at Blackburn now. They are spending the night. They are mature adults who will be helping with security just to make sure that nothing happens to our children, nothing happens to our youth. These are our children, and we have to be there in physical form for them. They are still in need of comforters, though. Just speaking to the students last night, it gets really chilly and they don't have enough blankets and comforters. They're cold, and they're in it for the long haul. They're determined. They're not moving. And we have to be just as determined and emphatic with our courageousness and our just sense of commitment. We really do.
And I saw that you had an outstanding, again, an outstanding shout out, again, not only to Johnny Mercy, but you had some details into the chat. Again, if you are listening, we want you to go check out this feed on the YouTube channel. That's the Abe Legal YouTube channel. Share that contact information that you have into the chat with your friends. Have them come out. I think the somebody can put into the chat the Live Movement Cash App. Is that what I understand is the place where the money should be sent to the students to give them the funding that they need to get warm meals. I spoke to our brother, who you may know is one of the leaders of the popular the feeding program, Ransom Miller. He feeds a big chunk of our community around Thanksgiving, and so they're working on that feeding project, and I think that he's working to get some of that food delivered earlier to the students. But the bottom line is that the students, can you go over their demands quickly before we conclude? And if there's anybody who has any questions, you can put them in the chat. We'll try to get those questions answered for you. But can you go over briefly, what do the students want at this point?
Okay, so they want, well, first of all, their priorities have shifted to amnesty is the number one demand of the students, because they're getting threatened with expulsion, and they're getting these veiled threats from the Howard University administration. So they need protection. They need amnesty from all of their protests, actions, to just bringing awareness to the issues. They need legal protection. They are receiving some legal protection. Well, they're receiving assistance from the NAACP and Howard University law school students. But one of their other demands is to meet with Frederick in a town hall. They want to be listened to in a town hall, I believe, before October 31st, to Frederick and the administrators. They also want to sit down with Frederick and the administrators to develop a long-term housing plan. Do you hear that? That is so democratic of them, that they want to sit with the school leaders to develop a plan together. That makes sense. We need young minds in that process, right? And then the other thing is, and this is a biggie, and God bless all of these children for coming up with demand to reinstate not just the student affiliate trustee position, but the faculty position and the alumni seat as well. So the courage of these students, okay, to think not just about themselves, but about the grown ass faculty members, I'm sorry, and the grown ass alum.
Can I
And
speak to
so,
that?
and so I say that because I need for us to break through faculty members, break through. Do you want to keep living like this? Or do we want to living to die really? Or do we want to stand up united as a collective and shut this stuff down? You know, and
Well,
stop the madness. And
well, that
same with the alumni.
well, sister, I want to. I would be remiss if I did not speak to that issue particularly, because as someone who ran for a graduate student alumni or graduate student position,
Okay.
and who helped to campaign for a number of alumni positions to the trustee, and the person who was a brother of someone who actually was a student
Right.
trustee, a
That's
two-time, in fact, elected student
That's
trustee.
right.
I can tell you that those positions, even though they were eliminated, they were a sham to begin with, because
Okay.
the people who sat in those positions had to take an oath that they would not represent the interests of the people who elected them, but that they would always represent the interests of the university, right, which they created and crafted, was almost opposed to the interests of the people who elected them. So much so is that you had to actually also sign a contract of again of non-disclosure, that you could not disclose to the people who elected you what was being discussed, right, in the university's board of trustees meetings that had to do with you. So the idea that the students are protesting for the reinstatement of these sham positions, I think, needs to be revisited.
Yes.
We as alumni, not only that, but even they went further, that because under the current administration, the administration of again Dr. Wayne Frederick, he then again thought that it wasn't enough to have again a gag rule over alumni and over faculty and over students. He wanted something more, at least as it relates to the faculty. I mean the alumni. So the alumni elections were actually conducted by the university themselves. So the alumni, not independently, but the alumni under the leadership of the alumni office in the university. Then they said that the people who were elected, the alumni had to choose two positions. They had to vote for two people, because the board of trustees ultimately had the decision of who they chose to seat. So that if the person got the most votes, there was no guarantee that they would actually be seated. And again, this just shows you the ridiculousness of these sham positions. But that wasn't enough. But because even though, and not only, again, so you had to first get the blessing. So the alumni department chose all, if you wanted to run for the position, you had to submit your nomination. And the alumni, again, department, under the authority of the president's office, could choose whether or not you would even get on the ballot.
Right.
And then once you're on the ballot, if you got the most votes, but yet you were controversial because you were going to actually speak out on behalf of the alumni, they could choose not to seat you. So, sister, can you speak to why we cannot accept that as being, enough to, again, calm down? Maybe it might be enough for the students, but should the alumni accept that?
Well, I think that the students and the alumni need to work together. Okay. And so the capstone group has been working democratic socialists, kind of peripherally and kind of, just being there. But that's evidence that we need to, the example that you use, we need to work with the students. April Silver and the Howard, big shout out to them, the Howard Alumni United. I think I'm saying Howard. Okay. I don't have the acronym quite right, but April Silver and Damani King, they've been making an effort to reach out to the young people. They want to reach out to the students and connect with them to provide kind of historical context and to just help them kind of shape strategy. Okay. That's why it's important to be, a a podcast the other night, or a Zoom call. That was great, but the students didn't hear it. So we got to take it further and say, let's get together in a room, or let's get together outside of Blackburn. That's another reason why we have to be there, right? You have to form relationships. You have to be on the ground. You can't just come down and say, hey, this sucks. No, it's great. They crafted that. And for students to come up with that and even include faculty and staff in that, I think it was great. Of course, they need help because we have to increase the capacity, like you just said, of those affiliate seats on the board. It can't just be symbolic. It has to have some weight to it. Definitely.
No, no. And let me make sure I was correctly stating what my position was. I'm not saying that the positions of the students were not visionary. I was saying, as you said, that we have to go further
Okay.
than just the reinstatement of those seats.
Absolutely.
There has to be a bylaws change to make sure that those seats are constituency based seats and that they are answerable to their constituents, including the ability to have them removed not by the board but by the constituents who
That's
elect
right.
them, right?
Okay.
Second of all, I think that there was, and I was on the webinar that was held yesterday by the Howard University Alumni United. I guess it was the name, Howard Alumni United.
I know. I always get it mixed
up. And in that, there was the student leader from the 2018 protest, and she called out the fact that they have attempted to do exactly what these students did. In fact, she said they actually did have a meeting with the president. He did meet with them, but the fact that he met with them did not guarantee what they wanted. In fact, they compromised, and they again held the A building, and then they agreed, due to the negotiation of their lawyer, or the person who was supposedly representing them, and he advised them to take the compromise that the university gave, which was, at least in my estimation, nothing, because nothing changed, right? There was no accountability for the theft of the embezzlement of the money. There was no change dramatically in terms of the student housing conditions, that we still have them right now. The buildings that were again being marketed, they went ahead and continued. In fact, as you know, they went ahead and moved on the beautiful campus, the so-called West Campus, not the West Campus, but the East Campus, and that is the Howard University Divinity School campus. Beautiful land in the midst of the other kind of I want to say religious organizations and institutions like Catholic University. A beautiful piece of property, and they again went ahead and essentially marketed that entire property out, and it's going to become some housing, high price housing. Can you speak to that, sister? Because I know you did an expose on that.
Oh yeah, it's just a shame. I just, to reiterate what you were saying, that land that was gifted by Catholic University to Howard University. You don't sell your gifts. That that property that has such historic meaning. What's his name? My Mays Franklin. What's his name? He was president of Morehouse for years.
Benjamin Mays.
Benjamin Mays. You can feel his energy. That building was named after Benjamin Mays. Um, it's just a horrible thing. You can't sustain the um, you can't sustain this university, the legacy of this university, this iconic university, by making moves like this, just haphazard and just reckless moves that are just kind of steeped in corporate capitalism. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. But I did want to say, one of my, just to piggyback on what you were saying, Tyler, one of my capstone colleagues says that, they want to meet, the students want to meet with Frederick in the town hall. Faculty and staff need to be on it, or faculty and alum need to be in on the meeting. They need to be in on the meeting, especially about the reinstatement, because we have to ensure, I heard some feedback, that those positions mean so much more than just this kind of symbolic representation. And I think the students would love that. I think they would be open to it.
Well, I think it would be great. But as again, the 2018 student leader put it, they met with the president and nothing changed.
But
And
were
so
alumni and faculty in on that?
in the meeting. So again, your suggestion is that we have alumni and faculty in on that meeting. But the question is that if you still have the same type of totalitarian mentality who is currently running the university and the handpicked members of the board of trustees, how do you expect that there will be change ever to occur unless you have a wholesale change of the leadership?
I agree, because if you're not willing to just meet these simple demands of the students and show up, then that means you're not willing to change and you got to go. I
And
said it.
see,
President Frederick and the board of trustees, you all need to be, it's your time is done. You we don't need you. If you can't, open this thing up and see us as equals, it's time to go. It's time to move on. We got to start a new culture.
and it's interesting that you said that because in 2018, it was the board of trustees had just given the president another 4-year term, right? That's in 2018. So and they said they didn't want to basically fire him because he would basically have, again, 3 years of contract money that they might technically be obligated. And that's, again, as a lawyer, I would have said that that was bogus, but there was some argument that there at least be some possibility that they would have to have paid him some amount of that, right? Well, now, again, it's the end. He only has months left in his contract. So there's no reason for him to have a renewal of his contract. That is, to me, that has to be the number one objective of our students. And again, if it's not the number one objective of the students, it at least has to be the number one objective of the alumni and the faculty.
Yeah,
the faculty, can you speak to it? When did the faculty first vote in a vote of no confidence against this particular president? Can you speak to that?
I cannot. I don't know if it was 2018 or before that. I think it was before, because
Right.
it's been 3 no confidence votes for him. Okay, so we don't want to heap that on the students, but oh, sorry. Hold on 1 second. Okay.
No worries, no worries. This is the nature of, again, having again the pop-up meetings that we are having there. But again, this shows that, again, we have to have the students. We have to support our students. So again, if you're an alum, we're calling on you to join with us tomorrow at noon at Howard University. We're going to meet at the flagpole and then go over to the Blackburn Center and then stand with our student leaders and host a press conference. So if you're with WTOP or with Channel 7 or Channel 4 or Channel 5 or any of the broadcasting networks out there, we call upon you to join with us and in solidarity with our students to again let people know that they need to be again heard. And I think that for too long, students have not been heard, and that's the reason why you have substandard housing taking place right now at the campus. I know it's only about 2 more minutes before we conclude. Sister Maria, did you have any more direction or comments that
Yes, I
you
do.
want to share?
Yes, I do. I'd like to say, while we're working out this process of getting the students' demands met, of changing the board and the nature of that, we also have to think outside of the box, and we have to think in a very. We have to use the Nguza Saba in our actions, meaning we have to come together as a collective creatively with our money to do what we need to do for our students and for our institutions. So one of the things that we had talked about in the capstone group is purchasing real estate ourselves around Howard. We do not, yes, it's gentrified, it's high. We should have done it a long time
Go
ago.
on. That
But now,
that was something I mentioned. I mentioned that. You know, people didn't. They didn't see, and that's the point. People talk a lot, right?
yes, they do.
They talk a lot, but to me, one alum once said that you don't talk unless you talk with your money, right?
Right.
Or at least your time. You see what I
Okay.
mean?
Yes.
If you're just talking with your email or you're talking with your chat, you know what I mean? You're talking with your webinars, you know what I mean? That's just talk. You know
It's
what I
the
mean?
superfluous ego kind of thing. Yeah, that's right. So we need for us, and see, the students aren't talking, they're doing it.
Right.
So we need for the adults in the room to show up. What does that even mean? You're an adult. So what? If you, that means nothing to me. If you're not on the ground doing practical things in our community, then sit down and be quiet, please. And and so what what we're proposing is, as a collective, your group, my group, I mean our group, I don't say my, our group, Howard Alumni United, all of these groups, let's get together and get this housing for our children. Let's do it. Let's do it. What is the problem? If Howard University administration won't do it, then we have to. We can't moan and groan about them and what they're not doing. We have to take action, real action. Or otherwise, don't quote Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and all of these people, and don't do that, because it's blasphemous. It really is.
Well, this has been, I've never had a Howard University homecoming experience like this. I've
Happy
never
homecoming.
been engaged with the protest, and I'm a person who came on Howard's campus blazing, ready to protest at the drop of a hat, protesting the war against the first Iraq war and protesting the invasion of Grenada. I mean, we were just protesting anything, at those days, I mean, rightfully so,
Right.
rightful protest. But I've never engaged in a protest during Howard homecoming. I think it was brilliant, and it was sad to see how much effort was made by the university administration to downplay and diminish these activists when really this should have been a part of the branding. I mean, Howard
Absolutely.
University, the only school you can go to where there's a protest during homecoming.
Exactly.
My
If you're going
gosh.
to do corporate, do it right. Like really market it and pump it up. I just don't you don't downplay it, because the truth always comes to light. You
Come
see?
on,
So,
come on.
and
Think
that's,
about it again. So
Mhm.
I want to celebrate all those people who took an hour of your time to join us tonight. This has been an amazing conversation. I think that again, Sister Maria, you and your and the group, the capstone group, is to
Capstone Group.
be celebrated, and this is a good kind of reunion, if you will, for us. And I'm glad that it's been, again, a long time in the making. I'm glad that we've finally been able to put our heads back together, because, as my father used to say, the late Dr. Talib Karim Muhammad, working together is winning together. And as your father, one of the legends of Howard University, the late and famous Leroy Jones, also known as Imamu Amiri Baraka, he used to always teach that you got to speak truth to power. You know what I mean? You have to speak that truth to power. And that, he used to reiterate the comments that were made by Frederick Douglass, that power consists in nothing but demand,
That's right.
And so we have to demand the change that we want on Howard University's campus. Again, this is being hosted by my own company, so it's not necessarily that we're against, again, progressive companies, being able to, engage in, as you say, in, the Nguzu Saba. And one of the Nguzu Saba principles is Ujamaa, or collective economics. We need to have collective economics, right? Or cooperative economics, right?
Absolutely.
But we need to be doing it in a way that's smart. And again, the way in which the university is going about engaging with our young students and disenfranchising them, selling off the properties, adding to the gentrification, it's not smart at all. So again, congratulations to you, sister, for documenting this. I want to actually ask if you could perhaps come back on, so we can actually get the video, the documentary that you made, because we got to get that out there. People need to understand what's happening with these properties, and I know that you've taken the time to document them. Will you come back and hopefully air that piece so people can better understand?
Absolutely. And hopefully you can have on a student leader and maybe a faculty member as well.
Absolutely. Well, this has been an amazing conversation, first for me, and first for Howard University, or at least what we know. And we look forward to joining again with you tomorrow, 12 noon at Howard University. We ask that you come out, again, bring as many supplies as you can, bring the media, bring your iPhone, so you can be a portable media. But let's get the word out. And let's, again, have the students' demands met to get, amnesty. Let's get some housing, and let's, get at least, maybe not the students' demand, but at least my demand, and I'm sure the faculty feels this. Let's get a change of leadership at Howard University. Let's bring somebody. Dr. Frederick once said, I think it was quoted yesterday in this webinar, that he really finds himself most comfortable in the ER, and that he doesn't really feel comfortable when he's, having to deal with the issues of, student demands and faculty demands and alumni demands. And so it was suggested that if that's where his comfort zone is, that he needs to go into that space.
Absolutely. A brilliant surgeon. I mean, that's where he needs to be.
Right.
That's his environment.
And I'm sure that nobody would object. Instead of having two jobs, just do one job
Focus on that one, yeah.
Do one job well, And so we call upon Dr. Frederick to return to becoming a doctor. Return to the medical table where you, the operating table where you do really well at. Leave the job of being somebody who is like a Marion Barry. Leave that job to somebody who's like a Marion Barry. You know what I mean? Somebody who's willing to use their political savvy, their courage, their intelligence and brilliance, to really serve the people. And again, Marion wasn't perfect. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to, forgive all the man's shortcomings. Everybody has shortcomings. But again, he had a skill set that is necessary for this time, right?
That's right.
The current president doesn't have that skill set. So therefore he cannot serve in this role. And so we need somebody, and there's a lot of people. I mean, your brother, Ras Baraka, he's a good, after he retires from his position as the mayor of Newark, maybe he needs to come. Maybe we need to get a director, of film to be the president. There are so many people, who can take over this role, alumni who are committed. We talked about the president of Virginia State, who was brilliant and forgave all the student debt. He's an alum. So many people, who are, again, qualified. Those are the types of people I believe we got to call to serve at this particular time. So again, we're calling you tomorrow. Join us at 12 noon, Howard University's campus. This has been Talib Karim with Abe Legal. If you have any legal problems, of course, go to www.abe.legal and schedule your appointment with a lawyer, a world-class lawyer. And also, I'm happy to say that we've just launched a yoga platform. So if you have stress, and we think that the president might have some stress, we encourage you to come and take some yoga, President Frederick, by going to abeyoga.com. And enjoying online yoga classes with some world-class yoga instructors. This has been a wonderful conversation. Maria Jones, thank you so much. We appreciate you and your family for sacrificing your time. We look forward to joining you tomorrow at noon on the Howard University campus.
All right. Peace and blessings. Thank you.
Good
Thank
evening.
you.